Hello and welcome. Tonight, federal government unveils new strategies to help spur the nation's economic growth as the president suspends 0.5% cybersecurity levy imposed by the Central Bank of Nigeria. Absence in court of former Aviation Minister Ahmed Sirika and his brother Ahmed Sirika stalls their arraignment in another alleged contract fraud in the sum of 19.4 billion naira. And police in Plateau parade man said to be a student of the State Polytechnic after he attempted to rob a bank with a suspected explosive device tied around his body.
On business news tonight, OPEC's latest report shows Nigeria's crude oil production rose to 1.28 million barrels per day in April after 2 consecutive months of decline.
On sports news tonight, world #1 Iga Swiatek sails into the semi-finals of the Italian Open with a 6-1, 6-3 victory over Madison Keys.
And from the nation's capital, Minister of Women Affairs threatens legal action against the Speaker of the Niger State House of Assembly over move to marry off 100 orphans who lost their parents to banditry in Mariga community.
And in international news from London, the US Secretary of State has told President Volodymyr Zelensky that military aid is now on its way during a surprise visit to Kyiv.
We kick off from the presidency, where the Federal Executive Council today approved an initiative aimed at spurring economic growth through investments in the infrastructure and housing sector. The Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edun, gave details of this after a Federal Executive Council meeting that spanned 2 days. Our State House correspondent, Larry Lasisi, reports that the President has also suspended the controversial cybersecurity levy of 0.5% introduced by the CBN.
Cabinet members and other members of the Federal Executive Council converge on the council chamber in the presidential villa. With the arrival of President Bola Tinubu, the FEC meeting that began the day before gets underway. A few hours later, some ministers appeared to brief State House correspondents. Among the approvals from the meeting is one initiative aimed at infusing funds into the infrastructure and housing sector to stimulate economic growth. It will also enhance job creation and inclusive growth.
There is available in Nigeria long-term funds to fund infrastructure projects, and it's within the pension, life insurance, and investment fund industry generally. There is upwards of 20 trillion naira available, and much of it is in short-term funding that it doesn't need to be. Pension money is long-term. We are now able to announce, and with the full knowledge and support of all parties, that there will be an initiative to fund growth through investment in infrastructure, including housing, provision of mortgages, long-term mortgages, 25-year mortgages at relatively low interest rates.
The minister also touched on government's efforts to encourage electric and CNG transportation in the country.
The procurement is on. 600 buses are on their way, and as I said, they are not all to be purchased fully built. There's also a large portion that all the assemblers that are available in Nigeria have been given business, they've been given orders. Also, there are about 30,000 conversion kits coming in.
Council also considered the controversy surrounding the cybersecurity levy on electronic banking transactions.
The position of government is that that policy has been suspended. That policy has been put on hold. That is the position of government for now. It is undergoing some form of review.
Minister of Power also spoke on the approvals to help enhance the national grid and power supply in the country.
For the contract for procurement of 10 numbers of 500 kV, 33 kV, 415 volts Artin transformers, and 10 numbers of 33 kV Artin reactors for the transmission company of Nigeria. Now, the impact of these Artin transformers and reactors is actually to enhance the optimum performance of the national grid, as we have witnessed incessant collapse and disturbance on the grid. This will go a long way in strengthening and expanding the grid.
Council also approved the sum of 400 million naira that will be for power generating sets, which will act as backup for solar-powered streetlights in the FCT. From the presidential villa, Lanre Lasisi, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development says payment for access into airports across the country is now compulsory for everyone. Mr. Festus Keyamo, who was speaking after the Federal Executive Council meeting, explained that the practice whereby individuals are given complimentary e-tags has resulted in significant loss for the aviation sector, running into billions of naira. According to him, the President and the Vice President have also said they should not be excluded from this new policy.
It is inconceivable that in our country it is the VIPs that don't pay for services, but it is the poor men that pay for services. The VIPs who are supposed to have money don't pay for services, but they compel poor men to pay for services. And I said no. So I got my team together. I said, we need the backing of council to compel everybody. In fact, guess what? Our memo says, with the exception of the president and the vice president. The president overruled me. He said he and the vice president will pay. He said everybody. This has led in the past to loss of billions of naira, not millions, billions of naira annually because of this. And yet, our airport infrastructure, you know they are decaying. I am helpless. I'm looking for concessionaires. I'm looking for help for decaying infrastructure. And they will be the first to cry out, these same VIPs, why are your toilets like this? Why are your toilets smelling? Why can't you do this? Why? They are the same people, but they don't pay for the services. So if we want improved infrastructure at the airport, we must pay for services.
To the judiciary, the scheduled arraignment of former Aviation Minister Mr. Ahmed Sirika and his brother Ahmed Sirika for another case of contract fraud in the sum of 19.4 billion naira did not go ahead today, as the defendants were absent in court and out of Abuja. A counsel to the EFCC, Mr. Oluwaleke Atolagbe, informed the presiding judge, Justice Suleiman Belgore, that the former Aviation Minister and his brother have also not been served with the charge in the case. He therefore prayed for an adjournment, which was granted by the judge, who subsequently fixed Thursday, May the 23rd, for their arraignment. The 19.4 billion naira is said to be for several aviation ministry contracts, from the former minister to Enginos Nigeria Limited, which is owned by his younger brother, Abubakar Sirika.
These are different transactions, and as the transactions come, cases can come in different ways. There are different defendants here. There is only one common defendant with the other one. The remaining defendants are totally different. So the cases, the transactions, they don't have to be together.
The House of Representatives Committee on Financial Crimes is urging the House to invoke and apply its full powers against Binance Holdings Limited to ensure that the firm appears before it to answer to petitions claiming irregularities it allegedly perpetrated here in Nigeria. The committee said this at a briefing in the nation's capital of Abuja, while asserting that all relevant agencies of government would be invited to determine the extent of Binance's default and the relevant punitive measures. The committee is also insisting that Binance Holdings Limited should be made to tender an apology to the House for seeking to denigrate its integrity by alleging that members asked it for bribe.
We recognize that the blackmail by Binance is merely an attempt to distract and draw attention away from the serious allegations of criminality against it, which is now compounded by its role in the security breach of the sovereign Nigerian state. It is notable that it was after it had unlawful and criminally smuggled Mr. Ajawal out of the lawful custody while his purported head, financial crime compliance, Mr. Trigan, had been remanded in pretrial custody at Kuje Correctional Facility, Abuja, on unlawful orders of Nigerian court. By Binance, on the 7th of May 2024, belatedly made allegations of solicitation of bribes purportedly made by the committee on the 8th of January 2024. After 4 months, the committee will continue with its legitimate function as indicated and will update the relevant authorities, the general public, and the press as the need arises.
Former President Olusegun Obasanjo is asking leaders who have held critical positions to document and share their experiences to foster national development and for posterity. President Obasanjo said this today in Abuja at the public presentation of 3 books authored by Mr. Sylvester Monye, who was a minister under former President Goodluck Jonathan. Our correspondent, Benny Ark, reports.
Among the personalities gathered at the Shehu Yaradua Center in Abuja are former presidents, former governors, top government officials, and other distinguished guests. The event is a public presentation of 3 books about national development, politics, and civil service by Professor Sylvester Monye, who was a former special advisor to President Goodluck Jonathan on performance, monitoring, and evaluation. In his remarks, former President Olusegun Obasanjo, who is the chairman of the event, urged everyone who has held office in any capacity to record their experiences for the next generation.
There's need, and great need, for more people who have occupied critical positions of leadership in this country to document and share their experiences as Professor Moye has done, so that others can benefit from those experiences.
Another former president directed his comments to the importance of long-term development planning.
Some time ago, we really have good plans. 50 years, 25 years, 10 years, 5 years, the national annual budget. I hope we'll go back to those days. And if we have plans, yes, plans will be modified based on the exigencies of time. But if we have clear plans that will really help us to move forward, the development of nations will be better, and things will not be built because of the caprices of those who are in power.
A former president of the Senate and former governor of Kwara State believes ideology and vision should be the mark of the true leader.
I think that it is very important for our country that when people go to seek office, they have a better understanding of where the country is and where we intend to take the country. Unfortunately, most of our leaders seek office for the sake of office as opposed to what they intend to do with the office. But if you do not even have an idea of what the country is about, then what are the chances that you can add any value to this country?
The discussions underscore the vital importance of contributing to national development, politics, and civil service for the advancement of the country and its citizens. Benny Ark, Channels Television News.
In part 2, after the break, Labour Party presidential candidate in the 2023 election, Peter Obi, restates call for respect for rule of law and the protection of the sanctity of the judiciary. Plus, police in Plateau State parade man who attempted to rob a bank in Jos with a suspected explosive device tied around his body. 19.4 billion naira. The police in Plateau State parade man who attempted to rob a bank in Jos with a suspected explosive device tied around his body And U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken pays a surprise visit to Kyiv, tells President Volodymyr Zelensky that Labour Party presidential candidate in the 2023 election, Mr. Peter Obi, is calling for the respect for rule of law and the protection of the sanctity of the judiciary. Mr. Obi made this call at the 5th memorial lecture of late Justice Anthony Anyagolu, which took place at the Godfrey Okoye University Thinkers Corner in Enugu.
It's the 5th memorial lecture of late Justice Anthony Anyagolu, and leaders of thought, political leaders, family members, law students are gathered here at the Godfrey Okoye University at Thinkers Corner in Enugu. The judiciary and the future of Nigeria is the theme of this year's lecture, put together to honor the late jurist and the former governor of Anambra State and Labour Party's presidential candidate in the 2023 elections. Mr. Peter Obi is the guest speaker. He begins his lecture by speaking on the sanctity of the judiciary and why the judicial institutions must be protected from corruption of the political class.
There's no reason why government should not obey judgment. That is the rascality I'm talking about that we must deal with. We must dismantle it and get an institution, because that institution is so important. It is the foundation, I keep saying it, for rule of law. And rule of law is the most important intangible asset for a society to exist.
The former governor of Anambra State also has some advice for young people.
Do not allow us to use public resources to receive you, to give you money that belongs to you. That society you are destroying, that society we are destroying will take its revenge on you. So it is important that you resist us.
The federal lawmaker representing Anambra Central at the Senate, Senator Victor Ome, also shares his thoughts on the need to put the pursuit of justice at the front burner of national discourse.
What we are seeing today didn't accumulate in 1 year. The wrongs of the previous years are the things hunting Nigeria down today. And if we begin today to fight along the side of these ideas and visions, we will have hope for a future Nigeria.
Speaking on behalf of the family of late Justice Anyagolu, his daughter Loretta says the lecture is to promote his legacies.
It's wonderful to have the legacy of a parent who's done so well and who's left you a very good name. If only most parents will understand that the most important thing to give your child is good values, and if you can, a good education. Everything else is secondary.
As they conclude this edition, focusing on the importance of the independence of the judiciary, the family is hopeful that lawyers will continue to uphold justice and integrity for the benefit of the nation.
To electoral matters now. Ahead of the forthcoming governorship elections in Edo and Ondo states, the independent National Electoral Commission INEC is asking for the support of civil society organizations for the mobilization of voters for registration and collection of their voter cards. The INEC National Chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, made the appeal at a meeting with representatives of civil society organizations in Abuja. He said the commission will publish the list of all uncollected voter cards in the coming days.
The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC, along with some national commissioners, are meeting with representatives of civil society groups ahead of the September and November governorship elections in Edo and Ondo states. The meeting is to keep the civil society groups abreast of the preparations for the forthcoming exercises. The INEC chairman begins by informing the groups about plans to begin the continuous voter registration in Edo and Ondo states following the conclusion of primaries in the two states.
Following extensive consultation,
he also informed the audience that the commission will be training 794 officials who will carry out the registration exercise.
2024.
However, he makes an appeal to the civil society groups regarding mobilization of voters.
In addition to the registration of voters, the Commission will also make available the uncollected permanent voters' cards for collection during the voter registration. In the coming days, the list of uncollected PVCs will be published in our offices in the two states and simultaneously uploaded to our website. The Commission therefore appeals to civil society organizations to join us in mobilizing prospective registrants for the exercise.
Representatives of the civil society groups present pledged their support to the electoral umpire.
Even though the Commission is independent, they seem to partially depend on us for collaboration and cooperation. We promise that we will fulfill all the demands you have made of us.
Civil society organizations form critical components of election monitoring mechanism in Nigeria, as they make up the biggest chunk of election observer groups in the country.
Also, security now in Plateau, where the State Police Command has apprehended one Benjamin Basil, a student of the Plateau State Polytechnic Birkin Ladi campus, as the alleged mastermind of the failed bank robbery attempt in Jos. Parading the suspect at the Police Command headquarters in Jos, Commissioner of Police Emmanuel Additional said that the suspect entered the bank with a suspected explosive device tied around his body. The police also paraded other persons suspected of other crimes in the state. Of course, still on the major suspect, he then handed over a note to the cashier demanding for the sum of 100 million naira under the threat that the explosive would be detonated if his request was not granted. So let's head to the nation's capital now, where Terry Ikumi is standing by to give us the very latest from our Abuja studios. Hello, Terry. Over to you.
Well, hello, Ayo. Now, the Minister of Women Affairs, Mrs. Uju Kennedy-Ohaneye, has threatened legal action against the Speaker of the Niger State House of Assembly following his announcement to marry off 100 orphans who lost their parents to banditry in Mariga, Niger State. Speaking with journalists in Abuja, Mrs. Kennedy-Ohaneye explains that the action violates the Child Rights Act, which stipulates protection for children. However, the Speaker of the Niger State House of Assembly, Mr. Abdul Malik Sarkindaji, explains that he has rescinded his decision on the matter.
The latest media briefing by the Minister of Women Affairs, and this borders on the protection of orphans and vulnerable persons in the country.
We will make sure that these girls are getting married.
The minister is reacting to plans by the Niger State Assembly to marry off some orphans in the state.
I heard over the news yesterday and all over the internet, where a particular legislator, being the Speaker of Niger State, mentioned as part of his constituency project to marry out and pay dowries for 100 orphans who were displaced by bandits in their village. I want to let the Honorable Speaker of House in Niger State to know that this is totally unacceptable by Federal Minister of Women Affairs and by the government. Totally unacceptable.
She also plans to take up the matter legally.
The future of the children to come out of that marriage must be considered. So I have gone to court. I have written him a letter. I've written a petition to the police, the IG of police, and I have filed a case for injunction to stop him from whatever he's planning to do on the 24th, until such a time a thorough investigation is carried out on those girls, find out whether they gave their consent, find out their ages, find out the people marrying them, who are they.
The Speaker of the State Assembly is also reacting to the matter, stating that while the decision is not meant to harm the orphans, he has chosen the path of peace and will discontinue the plan.
I'm disappointed with her action. And as such, I'm making it known to everyone now that that support I intend to give, I'm withdrawing it. For the marriage of those orphans, I'm withdrawn. The parent can have the support. If they wish, let them go ahead and marry them out. If they wish, let them use it for whatever purpose they want to. I've done it in good faith, and I will continue to do it.
The Child Rights Act is now adopted in 34 states of the Federation. The Minister of Women Affairs is promising to do better towards the protection of children as well as empowerment of women for socio-economic development. Sarah Chimugu, Channels Television News.
In Kaduna State, a group of Christians under the umbrella of Christian Solidarity Worldwide Nigeria has staged a peaceful protest to demand the release of Leah Sharibu and other abducted school children still in custody of bandits and terrorists in the northern part of the country. During the protest held at the Ekwa Good News Church in the Kaduna State capital to celebrate the 21st birthday of Leah Sharibu, the group criticized what it describes as government helplessness in rescuing the lone Chibok schoolgirl 7 years after she was kidnapped by Boko Haram terrorists in Yobe State. Well, still ahead on News at 10, OPEC's latest report shows Nigeria's crude oil production rose to 1.28 million barrels per day in April, after 2 consecutive months of decline. That's on Business News. Please stay with us. Well, welcome back to the News at 10. Let's go to more protest stories now, where this time in Delta State, members of the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association, Nigerian Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers, NUPENG, and residents of Koko in Warri North local government area have kicked against the sealing of an oil depot by the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Agency for over 5 months now. According to the protesters, this has brought untold hardship to the people and also contributed to the unavailability and recent hike in the cost of petrol, since they cannot lift products for distribution to consumers.
This protest by some residents in Koko community by the Nigerian Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers and Independent Marketers Association in Delta State is to plead for the reopening of the Taurus depot, which was sealed in January.
We are also saying no to this systemic and all gradual exploitation or enslavement of independent petroleum marketers. In that, okay, now you've heard of it, how much we have here. Because when they are bringing these vessels, it is our monies they use to bring these vessels before distributing to us. And we cannot get that access without going to NNPC retail portal. And we've been shut out of this portal for over a month.
Is it difficult for a country to know what is happening if a water is inside the vessel, to know what caused it? For 5 months, for crying out loud, we are pleading to the government, pleading to this government. They are trying also join the hitman. We work together to beg. Our customers' money are tied down. People borrow money from bank to buy this product.
The inability of the petroleum marketers to access the NNPC retail portal to pay and lift products for onward delivery to the end users is a challenge that has been highlighted by the group.
My members are dying. They should open this Tyros so that my members can take their product out of Tyros. That is one. 2, they should open the NNPC, the NNPC retail portal for us to access it, to buy it directly from the government.
Apart from Ipman, the indigents of Koko community and environs say they are suffering from the adverse economic impact of the closure of the Taurus depot and jetty.
We are begging any authority when they concerned, if not for even Tyros and other companies when they are, at least for the sake of widows, orphans, when they leave, because of the benefit of this road, let them try to declare this place open for us.
The depot was locked up when a team from the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority discovered that about 9 out of the 20 million liters of premium motor spirit in a cargo was loaded with water. The protesters appealed to the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority to conclude their investigations in order not to push stakeholders out of business.
Where the National Youth Council of Ogoni People, NICOP, as well as other Ogoni groups say they are now ready for the resumption of oil exploration in Ogoni land. They declared their stance on what they term economic rebirth for Ogoni land during a peace walk in Bori, headquarters of Kana local government area in Rivers State. They, however, listed conditions that the federal government must meet to revive oil exploration activities in the area.
Mossop is intact. There is no division in Mossop. Ogoni youth, we are one. But we want to control our oil by Ogoni Bill of Rights. That we will participate fully
being the highest stakeholders in that oil block. Bori is dark. There is no light in Bori. We're also calling on NDDC that we have contributed our own quota in the development of Niger Delta. Because of Ogoni, leaders that were key case around, that was where NDC was created. You are lighting up Niger Delta, other place in the creek. Look at Ogoni. From Element Junction to Ogoni, there is no street lighting.
That's all from the nation's capital. Back to Ayo in Lagos for the rest of the news.
Many thanks, Terry. We continue in Rivers State. This time, Governor Siminalayi Fubara has decried what he terms the substantial debt burden inherited from the previous administration, saying most of the projects commissioned in the state were not fully funded. Governor Fubara said this during the commissioning of the Aleto Ogale Ebubue-Teo Road, also known as the Old Bori Road in Eleme local government area. The project was commissioned by the Governor of Abia State, Dr. Alex Oti, who commended Governor Fubara for being loyal to the people.
This is a 10.9-kilometer Aleto Ogale Ebubu-Eteo Road, also known as Old Bori Road in Eleme local government area of Rivers State, and it's one of the projects slated for commissioning to mark the beginning of the activities to celebrate the first anniversary of Governor Siminalayi Fubara of Rivers State. Residents of the area are here to welcome Governor Siminalayi Fubara, the Governor of Abia State, Alex Oti, as well as top government functionaries for the inauguration of this road. Before inaugurating the project, Governor Oti commends Governor Fubara for prioritizing the needs of the people.
I have always said it, that leadership is service. Anytime leadership departs from service, then you are getting it wrong. And service should be service to the people, not service to a very few interests. Clearly, he came prepared. And I don't believe that any distraction is enough to take his focus away from the welfare and interest of the people.
Addressing the crowd, Governor Fubara, who began his career as a teacher in this area in 2003, commends them for supporting the contractor to complete the project.
I want to thank the good people of Eleme for their support in the course of this project. The contractor never complained. He got all the cooperation. And when Ambassador Ngofa was speaking, he said, at the end, we still need more. What you have done and what you have shown today is a sign that if we come back here to take any other project, we are protected. It means we can come anytime. And I can assure you that we are going to come back and do more projects for the good people of Eleme.
Next, he emphasizes the need for accountability in project funding, but decries the heavy debt burden inherited from the previous administration on project execution.
As we're going now, we'll be going with a white paper to show record and amount this project was awarded at the cost of 6.7 billion. And I can say boldly that no kobo is remaining. We've paid the contractor completely. The purpose of this is to let the world know that if there's one problem this administration has, is debt. Most of the projects that are being commissioned, they are coming for their balance payments, and it's running in millions and billions. I've said I don't want to talk. I don't want to talk because I am part of that system.
The road is then commissioned.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
The road, awarded at a cost of 6.7 billion naira in August last year, will provide an alternative to the dilapidated section of the Eleme axis of the East-West Road.
Many women in Kano State now have the opportunity to realize their dreams of owning their businesses. This comes as Governor Abba Yusuf has flagged off the distribution of 50,000 naira seed capital to women from across the 44 local governments in the state. Our correspondent, Sadiq Ilyasu, reports.
It's a happy day for these women who gathered at the Coronation Hall in Kano State Government House. The state government intends to distribute 50,000 naira each to 4,800 women across the state as seed capital.
Empowering women is not just a moral imperative, it is also a strategic decision that benefits our entire society. When women are empowered, they become agents of positive change in their communities. They invest in education, healthcare, and nutrition for their families, driving progress and prosperity for all. By providing financial support to women across all our local government areas, we are not just offering a handout, we are investing in the future of the family members across the state.
The women are expected to start any business of their choice.
To me, 50,000 is a big amount. I'll start a business and use it to support my family.
While some are excited, this woman cries for help as she requires 2 million naira for surgery on her right leg.
I am very happy with this money, but my leg requires 2 million naira for surgery. I wish the government could help me.
Yeah. 4,800 women benefited today from the first segment of the empowerment program. Subsequently, 5,200 women are expected to benefit across the 44 local government areas of the state. Sadiq Ilyasu, Channels Television News.
The Nigerian Navy is calling for the establishment of a special maritime court to expedite adjudication on maritime cases to decongest pending cases in court. This call was made by the Director of Information of the Nigerian Navy, Commodore Awiyo Adams Aliu, when he paid a courtesy visit to Channels Television in Abuja. Commodore Aliu underscores the partnership of maritime security companies with the Navy, especially as it concerns the efforts to end crude oil theft in the country.
We have a proliferation of what is often. One of the reasons why I'm here is for judicial processes to be expeditiously dealt with as much as possible. Suggestions have been made in the recent past of establishing maritime courts, special courts, to come and adjudicate all the maritime cases that we have pending. We have a lot of vessels in our jetties that are under investigation, and the investigations have been concluded, but the court processes are still ongoing. So that's one major challenge. We have constantly worked with many private maritime security companies. They have their roles, they have their specialities, and we need them. However, when it comes to capacity, when it comes to long-range interdiction, when it comes to surveillance, when it comes to bringing vessels to book, it is the Nigerian Navy. What is to come is that by 29 May, from 29 May till 2nd of June, we'll be celebrating the 68th anniversary of the Nigerian Navy. And that will take place in Lagos at Naval Dockyard Limited. There will be a regional maritime exercise, which is also international. There will be an international maritime conference with heads of navies from all over the world to brainstorm on maritime issues, and once again to put the story out there that as far as the sub-region is concerned, and I can also say maybe sub-Saharan Africa, but when I say sub-region, I mean West Africa and Central Africa, the Nigerian Navy remains #1, undisputed.
It's now time for business news with Will Ibok.
Thank you, Ayotunde. Now, still staying on Nigeria's crude oil production, we're seeing that Nigeria recorded an uptick last month, rising to 1.28 million barrels per day in April from 1.23 million barrels per day in March. And that's according to OPEC's latest monthly oil market report. The 51,000 barrels per day increase recorded in April brings to a halt the 2 consecutive months of decline recorded in the country's oil production. Also, with this increase, Nigeria regains its leading position on the chart for Africa's top oil producers within OPEC, followed by Algeria and Libya. Meanwhile, Nigeria's oil rig count remained unchanged at 19 in the month of April. Meanwhile, expectations are high as the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Exploration and Production Limited and the Natural Oil Field Services Limited begin production at Oil Mining Lease OML 13 in Akwa Ibom State. Stakeholders believe that this could mean that the country may be on the path to energy security. However, there are fears that the supply of crude may be a distraction and threat to security. This was expressed by the General Manager of Refineries with Ardell Holdings PLC, who was a guest on Business Morning earlier today. Meanwhile, the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, has pledged collaboration with the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, to curb trading manipulations in the virtual space. The Acting Director General of the SEC, Dr. Emomotimi Agama, affirmed this collaboration during a meeting with the EFCC today in Abuja. Dr. Agama highlights the importance of the cooperation, stating plans for an economic regulatory hub to enhance responsiveness among regulators and sister agencies. He also stresses the urgency in regulating virtual spaces, disclosing ongoing efforts to strengthen virtual regulations and enforce market integrity. And let's take a look at the stock market reports, where negative sentiments continued to linger in the second trading day of the week. Larry Williams tells us more.
Hello and welcome to the stock market report, where it's still profit-taking as more investors go away in May. If you look at the all-share index, 0.24% down. That's the drawback we have today for the all-share index. Market cap, 55 trillion. Let's look at the sectoral performance. And as usual, the banking counter lost sell pressure right there, 1.02%. Consumer goods, 0.81%. And the oil and gas counter is still unchanged. For the Fugas now, that's the Tier 1 banks. We're still seeing negativity there. GTCO is the only positive there, 0.12%. FBNH down a big 2%. And we see the likes of UBA also down 2.34%. Zenith Bank not left out. Well, today, the all-share index moves further away from the 100,000 level as yields in the fixed income market continue to lure investors. As we look forward to the April inflation number, looks like we might see more tightening from the central bank's MPC. That's the stock market report. I'm Ladi Williams.
And that's a wrap on business news. It's back to Ayotunde for the rest of the news at 10.
Many thanks, Will. 2 French prison officers have been killed in an ambush on a prison van near Rouen in Normandy. Prisoner Mohamed Amran, known as the Fly, was being taken from a court to a prison when a car rammed the prison van at a toll booth. We're here, Simon Puser, with more international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has told President Volodymyr Zelensky that military aid is now on its way during a surprise visit to Kyiv. The top US diplomat told the Ukrainian president the weapons will make a real difference against the ongoing Russian aggression on the battlefield. A senior US official says the American-funded weapons now arriving at the front line include air defense interceptors, artillery, and long-range precision-guided missiles. The visit comes as the country struggles to hold back a major Russian incursion near its second biggest city of Kharkiv. The United Nations says one of its staff members has been killed and another injured as they travelled to a hospital in southern Gaza. Video footage shows a UN-marked vehicle strewn with bullet holes outside the European hospital. The UN did not mention who it thought was responsible for the attack. The Israeli military said an initial inquiry indicated the vehicle was struck in an active combat zone and it had not been made aware of its route. Meanwhile, Israeli protesters blocked aid trucks destined for Gaza, throwing food packages onto the road and ripping bags of grain open in the occupied West Bank. The lorries, which were set upon at the Talmikwa checkpoint west of Hebron, came from Jordan and were headed to the Gaza Strip, where people are in desperate need of humanitarian aid. The White House has condemned the attack, describing the looting of aid convoys as a total outrage. The group reportedly behind the protest said they were demonstrating against the continued detention of Israeli hostages in Gaza. At least 14 people have been killed and dozens more injured after a giant billboard collapsed during a sudden storm in the Indian city of Mumbai. The billboard, measuring 70 metres by 50 metres according to police, fell onto houses and a petrol station in the city on Monday. Emergency services say a few people are still trapped under it and a rescue operation is underway. The government of Maharashtra state, where Mumbai is located, has ordered an inquiry into the incident. 4 people have died and 100 others have been left wounded after violent clashes with authorities in Pakistan-administered Kashmir. Thousands of people have been on the streets since Friday to protest rising prices of flour and electricity. Organisers called off the protests a day after Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif offered subsidies worth 24 billion rupees, or $86 million. Part of a collapsed bridge in Baltimore has been deliberately destroyed, clearing the way for the eventual full return of shipping through one of the busiest sea routes in the US. The demolition broke apart chunks of the Francis Scott Key Bridge, which collapsed in March. The operation was delayed over the weekend due to bad weather. The structure collapsed after it was hit by a cargo ship, the Dalai, which lost power and veered off course. Chad's interim Prime Minister, Suquez Masra, has filed a petition at the Constitutional Council challenging the preliminary results of last week's presidential election. His boss, General Mahamat Debi, was declared winner with 61% of the vote, but Mr. Masra considers himself to be the true victor. The opposition figure and his Transformers party said the results should be annulled, alleging that some ballot boxes were stuffed and others were carried away by soldiers to be counted elsewhere. And Britain's King Charles has handed over a senior military role to his son, Prince William, at a ceremony marking a rare joint appearance for the pair as the King steps up his return to public duties after his cancer diagnosis. Charles presented William with the title of Colonel-in-Chief of the Army Air Corps, a position the 75-year-old monarch has held for 32 years in a service at the Army Flying Museum in southern England. The visit was Charles's latest engagement since he returned to work at the end of April, almost 3 months after Buckingham Palace announced he was being treated for an unspecified type of cancer.
Having had the pleasure of knowing you for so long, I do hope you'll go from strength to strength in the future with the Prince of Wales as your new Colonel-in-Chief.
And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon. Welcome to Sports News. Manchester City took a huge step towards the Premier League title as Erling Haaland's double clinched a 2-0 win over Tottenham to send them 2 points above Arsenal ahead of the final day. In a subdued atmosphere at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, with Spurs needing a win to keep their top 4 hopes alive, City went in front with Haaland when Haaland tapped home KDB's cross after half-time. Haaland sealed the victory from the spot after Pedro Porro had fouled substitute Jeremy Doku. Defeat for Spurs means Aston Villa will finish 4th and qualify for the Champions League for the first time since 1983. The Manchester United defender Rafael Varane has announced he will leave the club at the end of the season when his contract expires. The 31-year-old joined from Real Madrid in 2021 for an initial fee of about £34 million and has made 93 appearances, scoring twice. He was part of the team that won the club's first trophy for 6 years, the 2023 League Cup. Varane, whose United career has been disrupted by injuries. World number 1 Iga Swiatek strolled into the semi-finals with a 6-1, 6-3 win over Madison Keys a little more than an hour. She maintained a red-hot form in Rome, where she's yet to drop off a set ahead of her French Open title defense later this month. The 3-time Roland Garros champion arrived in Rome after winning her third WTA 1000 title of the season in Madrid and could become the first woman since Serena Williams in 2013 to win in the Spanish and Italian capitals same season. And former heavyweight king Mike Tyson says his decision to step back into the ring at the age of 57 was a no-brainer, brushing off recent criticism that he was too old to make a comeback. At a press conference in New York to promote his upcoming bout against YouTuber turned fighter Jake Paul, Tyson admitted training for his return had taken a toll. Tyson, who turns 58 in June, takes on 27-year-old in a professional bout comprising 8 2-minute rounds. As it on sports, it's back to you, Ayotunde.